This video is not an attack on anyone. It's not saying anything bad about Spider-Man 2 as a game. If you watch my full review, I only have positive things to say about this game. It's in my top 3 for 2023, a year that's just full of so many good games. Spider-Man 2 is polished, it performs well, there's barely any bugs, and I did 100% playthrough of this game. I put about 30 hours into it so far. With that being said, yesterday I posted a video stating how I don't agree with IGN Digital Foundry, and mainly their assessment of how the game runs an average of 70 to 80 FPS. That's coming from Digital Foundry, and I don't agree with it running upwards of 100 FPS in certain areas. When I did my playthrough, the game always felt like it's 60 FPS, not 70 or 80 or 100. My analysis in that first video I posted was flawed. You can't capture VR footage using any of the available capture cards. I mean, even the latest ones, all it has is a pass-through for VRR. So I admit my mistake and my limited knowledge of VRR at the time. I screwed up, and I apologize for the incorrect analysis, and thanks to the guys at Digital Foundry and IGN for pointing out my mistake. Now, I did delete that first video. Where I still disagree is the inflated FPS numbers IGN and Digital Foundry claimed, which was really the main point of my first video. The way I went about showing it, yeah, that wasn't correct. Digital Foundry did the analysis using a LG TV overlay. So I went to my local Best Buy and bought a brand new TV, LG OLED C3. I hooked up my PS5 directly to the TV using a HDMI 2.1 cable. No capture card this time. Here you can see the display information in PS5 settings. VRR is supported between 48 to 120 FPS, 4K, HDR, all the good stuff. Here's the settings I use in Spider-Man 2. Performance mode with 120 Hz mode on, and VRR is set to Uncapped. I played the game for a few hours, played a few sections of the game actually. From my playthrough, I actually have manual saves spanning almost the entire game, so I can quickly hop between different parts of the game. During the gameplay, the average frame rate I saw the TV display was not between 70 to 80 like Digital Foundry claims. In fact, it rarely went over 70. It spends most of the time under 65. I would say the average is around 63 to 64 maybe. You round that down and it's practically 60 FPS. In fact, I saw more dips below 60 than above 65. Like this, and here, and here, and here, and here. I can go on forever. And right here where you see the counter go to 120 FPS all of a sudden, it's not 120, no way. That just means it dipped below 48 FPS. And IGN's 100 FPS claim in certain areas, I couldn't find any. I searched and searched. Even this indoor story mission, which I thought wouldn't be that demanding, is in the low to mid 60s. To get anywhere close to the 100 FPS, you need to stare at the ceiling, like I did right here. Maybe that's how IGN does their analysis. Now let's get to the second part, how this overlay on this LG TV works. If I'm in normal performance mode or fidelity mode, that overlay is just gonna show 60 FPS no matter what. If I go to fidelity mode with 120, it's gonna show 119 no matter what. If now I switch to performance mode with the 120 Hz and VRR off or smoothened, it's once again gonna show 119 no matter what. So in all those scenarios, that overlay FPS counter is useless. All it's showing is what type of signal the TV is receiving, that's it. The only time that FPS counter shows a useful number is when you're in performance mode. 120 Hz on, VRR uncapped, and the FPS that the TV is getting has to stay above 48 for the reading to work. Now I wanted to see how accurate that counter is, so I did do a little test here. And I actually used Spider-Man Remastered on PS5 to do this. I have the settings on performance, 120 Hz mode is on, and VRR is on as well. I'm of course measuring off-screen footage here using my iPhone. It's in slow motion recording. I'm recording at 120 FPS and 1080p. I'm gonna just stand here and spin the camera around really fast. I need some fast repetitive movements to make this analysis easier. I imported that off-screen 120 FPS footage into Premiere Pro. I split up the footage into 1 second intervals based on how that overlay FPS counter changes. The overlay counter refreshes once per second. So these 1 second splits I did, they're cut at exactly the 1 second point each time the overlay counter refreshes. This first second should have 101 frames, the second should have 111 frames, and so on. And I essentially counted the frames manually for a few seconds. And you know what? That overlay counter, it's pretty accurate. So Spider-Man Remastered delivers 100 FPS and above quite often. So this was it. For me, Spider-Man 2 is nowhere close to 70 to 80 FPS average at this time. It's likely closer to 60 to 65 FPS when you're actually playing the game. If all you want to do is stare at the ceiling, I mean sure, 80, 90, 100 FPS. And yeah, I did keep the title and thumbnail of this video the same because that was really the main point of my first video. The game currently is not the inflated 70 to 100 FPS. If you think I'm wrong, take it as my opinion and not fact, and maybe do your own research. Don't just blindly trust me. Don't just blindly trust these big news sites. Hey, I'm just a guy sitting in my basement making YouTube videos as a part-time hobby.